Hello, I'm Christine Storry. I'm the project manager for the Partners in Procurement Energy Network. This particular network is the South West England element of the SBP Region's project on sustainable procurement. This module is one of a suite of modules we're preparing for the SBP Region's project, and this one is on the use of labels in sustainable procurement. Again, it's just an overview of labels, what they are and how they can possibly be used. It's not an in-depth look at every single label possible. That's too big a topic, and I'm very sorry, that's something you might just have to do for yourself, but it is quite important. Sustainable procurement, a quick recap, because obviously labels work within the element of sustainable procurement. You're looking at social, economic, environmental issues within public sector procurement, workers' rights, contribution to local economic development, how you can mitigate bad air quality through specifying and procuring the right sort of vehicles, those sorts of elements around. But again, within that envelope of public sector procurement regulations, not only your own ones, but also the overarching EU directive and your nation state ones as well. They also need to work within your organisational needs and purchasing needs, and all these need to come together to make sure sustainable procurement works properly. I'm going to start with eco-labels. That's what people tend to think when they think of labels, but there are other ones as well, highly recognisable ones. So an eco-label, it identifies environmental preference. It has criteria linked to the environmental preference and performance of a particular product. It's based on life cycle cost, which is great. It's awarded by an impartial third party, and that's a completely crucial and key point about using labels and eco-labels within public sector procurement. It's awarded through accurate and verifiable communication and data. You know what's going on, nothing is hidden. Everyone can actually have access to go and have a look at it. It encourages demand for those products with those environmental preferences. And additionally, it stimulates the improvement of those products as well. Instead of just staying there at one level, they can move on and on to actually improve their environmental performance as well. There's three types of eco-labels. Type 1, and this is one that's accepted by the EU directives, it's a voluntary system, but again, it's very much third-party accredited, and that must be part of the verification process as well. It includes an overall environmental preferability for a product, and actually again on the life cycle basis. Type 2, it's just a self-declaration form by an organisation, completely meaningless. It's not objective, it's completely subjective. Type 3 again is voluntary. It's not quite as in detail as Type 1. There's few examples of it. So actually what we're looking at in all of this, and when I'm talking about eco-labels in procurement, I'm actually looking at Type 1 eco-labels. There's other types of labels. So looking at quality standards, to a certain extent that's a label as well. So your international standards organisations, social accounting, British standards, and these are quite often asked for in procurement as well. Production standards, such as organic production. Again, any organic production standard that's verified must be that third-party impartial verification. And what I'm calling kind of beyond eco-labels, those that have a social element to them as well, such as fair trade, where one of its key things is paying a fair price and social premium to the producers or the cooperative producers, and Rainforest Alliance. And there's more of them, there's more coming up, but again, that's that third-party impartiality in accrediting them, which is key. So a label can be generic. Obviously, it covers more than one product category. Good examples of these are Blue Angel, the EU Eco-Label, Nordic Swan, and Fair Trade. Again, Fair Trade not being an eco, it's kind of a more wide-standing label. All logos are actually very, very recognisable. Bizarrely enough, probably the EU Eco-Label in the UK is probably the least recognised amongst those four. Specific labels covers just one product category of product, or a suite within that. So the MSC Fisheries label, yes, that's for wild fish, it's not for farmed fish. There's another standard for that. And looking for FSC or PFC around timber and timber products. They are very much specific to the areas in which they work. Within procurement, labels need to meet these criteria. You can only concern criteria which is the subject matter of the contract, and I'll touch that in a moment in how that works. Again, labels are verifiable. You're not discriminating against anybody who may not have it at the time, or it's too expensive or too big to get hold of. The labels are established using multi-stakeholder approach. It's not just one organisation going, this is what we're going to do. Everybody has the opportunity to feed into the development of those labels. They're accessible to all interested parties. Again, it's not a closed shop or a clique. And they're set by the third party, of which the economic operator or bidder has absolutely no influence at all. And this is covered under Article 43.1 of the European Directive. Again, go back, have a look, and just kind of fit this in for yourself as well. I mentioned specific criteria and subject matter, and this goes back to your needs assessment and your defining your subject matter of the contract, which is actually crucial in your use of labels. If your label has criteria which is not specific to the subject matter of the contract, you actually can't require that label as part of your contract. But you can refer to the criteria which relate to your subject matter of the contract and use the label as verification of it. And that's the change that's actually happened fairly recently. Using labels in the procurement process. They can help define a technical specification, including award criteria and also the contract performance clauses. Again, they can verify compliance with those in the way that's just been described. So in the technical specification, award and contract performance clauses again. Their use is completely voluntary, apart from one mandatory one, and that's the EU Energy Star, which is mandatory for certain central government bodies and agencies. So you don't have to use labels, but actually it can be quite useful because people know what the criteria are because they're actually openly and publicly available, as long as they fit with the subject matter of the contract. So what happens if bidders don't have a label? They don't have time to get it, they don't have the resources to go and get it. They can actually verify what they do by a technical dossier, and actually procurement people have to accept that if it actually matches up with what they're asking for. There could be other labels which meet the criteria that you've put in with the contract, in which case that can also be used as verification and actually must be used as equivalency. You can't exclude a bidder if they can prove equivalency. That's just not fair. That's against the sort of anti-discrimination stuff. You have to be able to work with the bidder and your own systems to make sure that everyone possible can actually get up to these criteria if they are technically able to do so. Successful use of labels. Give very careful thought to the subject matter of the contract. I've mentioned that before, and it comes up here as well. It's easier to include sustainability and the verification by label use, or requiring it or using it before and after, if it's just defined at the start of the process. Adding it in at the end really doesn't work. Know your labels, and this goes back to the criteria that you can and cannot use. What does each of them achieve for the product which you're asking for, you're specifying, and which one is relevant for the contract? And this makes this particular bit is actually quite crucial, because people might use a label for shorthand for something, but actually there's a couple of criteria which may not quite work with what you want. Know your labels, very much so. Linked to an organisation's priority and policies. Use those policies and priorities to support what you want to do. If your organisation has a policy to use recycled paper, specifying FFC paper, non-recycled FFC in your tender documents, actually isn't going to work, and you just look a bit silly at the end of the day. So know your labels, give careful thought to the subject matter, and very much link to what your organisation is trying to achieve. Thank you. That again was a whistle-stop tour through labels. SPP Regions has more information on the site, and there's generally more information available. Thank you very much.